what is it like for your prep before the fights with Rogan and the crew?
Well, we talk a lot about the fights, right? I'll just give you an example. So when I saw him for the first time before UFC 329, I like to give him something to think about sometimes. And we're always talking about the fights, and it's always interesting to hear what he's burning on, if it were. But I just got up in his face right before UFC 329. I was like, I got two words for you. Mario Bautista. He's like, oh, okay. I just thought he would perform well in the rematch with Corey Sandhagen. Doesn't mean I thought he was going to win the fight or whatever. But yeah, it's fun. Sometimes there's more time in the dressing room than others. But funny moments, anecdotes, dude, it's hilarious, right? Just in conversation. Jay, you can attest.
But, when you talk about the prep before the fights, and nobody watches more film than Joe, so he's certainly prepared. But the idea that, he's not in the fighter meetings, you know what I mean? But you could be sure that he's aware of the athletes, even those that are competing early on the card. Yes?
Yeah. Oh, 100% locked in.
Best question of the night gets a Mackenzie Dern fighter card from UFC 295. This is a leader in the clubhouse. I like this question a lot from King Fitz. What was the moment where you felt you most belonged in the UFC as a broadcaster? And was there a moment where you perhaps felt the burden of imposter syndrome to be especially heavy?
Jay, I'm sure you probably can answer this for me. I don't know if I just had my blinders on, but I never sort of felt like an imposter.
Yep.
I've told the story after my first UFC fight night, January 20th, 2012, Nashville, Tennessee. Riding high. First show's done. Dana didn't fire me on the spot. We're going to go back to the room. Hi, I'd like to place an order for room 788. I'd like a cheeseburger with medium well, no cheese. French fries, yes. Oh, wait, can you sub onion rings? Let me sub onion rings, well done. So I order my well done onion rings and my hamburger, and then I open up Twitter. It was Twitter back then. Now it's X. I open up Twitter, and it was like an avalanche of hate. So, yeah, I felt like a bit of an imposter, I guess, that night. But, the moment where I felt I most belonged in the UFC. So I called UFC 155 later that year in December of 2012 on 3 days' notice, my first numbered event. And I think that broadcast, after doing that show with Joe, two-man booth, and he wrote something positive on Twitter back in the day. I felt like I really belonged. Go ahead, Jay.
Some really good questions. I was just going to say, and I don't mean this in a joking manner at all, but every time I crack a microphone in any way related to combat sports, I do feel like an imposter. I can't get Jon out of my head for a variety of reasons. We're identical twins. I've heard him do this for so long. So for me, I feel that in the truest sense of the word. Now, this guy won a card last week. Some fighters have voiced they don't like fighting in the apex. What about broadcasting? Do you prefer the intimate apex or the crazy sold-out stadiums?
So the new Meta Apex visuals are starting to come out, and it looks fantastic, but I can't imagine there would be any play-by-play man in the world who would sit here and say, kind of prefer like 1,000 people to 20,000 people going bananas like we just had in Serbia. So, yeah, give me the crazy sold-out stadium every day of the week.
But the intimacy of the apex is sort of special. And during the pandemic, it was uniquely intimate. I remember sort of just wandering over and sitting with Bruce Buffer for one of the events because it was that sort of empty. And so, yes, hearing everything, having the broadcasters be heard by the fighters in fight was a unique experience as well. What's your favorite item that you have in your office?
I wish I had my Alp nicotine pouches, the 3 millis right now. Wish I had those right now.
You have the cooler.
I have so much amazing sports memorabilia. Certainly my fighter card library is among the most cherished item.
Gus is already disappointed that he wasn't top of mind.
Gus the Gorilla?
For your favorite item in
Gus the Gorilla
there.
is a nice... We do have what I believe the most dominant performance in UFC history immortalized here. Shout out Ross Baines, ass. But Max Holloway over Calvin Kattar, those numbers will never be broken. So we have Max immortalized there. And, a lot of sports memorabilia, a lot of cards, a lot of different things. Could really use a Nico pouch right now.
Has a picture of Volk? That's pretty good. Has anyone brought in food or gifts into the fighter meeting for the team? Most delicious thing you've gotten, and who brought it?
Probably the lemon cookies baked by Quillan Salkild's mother. We had those in Australia, I think maybe earlier this year. Shavkat Rakhmonov brought in some Kazakh chocolates that were great.
If you couldn't commentate MMA, what other sport would you like to commentate? Football?
Well, I think NFL would be
Basketball,
a lot
bowling?
of fun. Major League Baseball, I think, would be great. I'm not exactly sure, how my style would translate, but I think that would be a challenge I would love to undertake. But I don't know. I mean, it's crazy to think about calling a sport like basketball after doing MMA. I don't want to call any other sport. After doing mixed martial arts, this is what I want to do.
From Puffo Bob, if you could change the result of one fight, which would it be and why? Good question.
I guess I would probably change the results of Kenny Florian versus BJ Penn.
Yes.
Right. And I'll come up with another answer, and I really appreciate the question. So, I just know how much Ken Flo put into that particular championship opportunity at 155 pounds, and he just so happened to draw that night in BJ Penn. The most motivated, disciplined Penn was throughout his entire career. And BJ Penn, in my opinion, on his best night is the best lightweight in UFC history with respect to Islam Makhachev and Khabib Nurmagomedov and Benson Henderson, Frankie Edgar, anybody else. To me, BJ Penn was the guy, so I would love to see if I could flip that rear naked choke to the other side. Ken Flo choking out the American BJJ black belt BJ Penn.
Does it annoy you that Ray Longo always directs his answers to Kenny?
I mean, how about that, Mike, right? I mean, it might as well be the Kenny Florian show, right? I'm just a figurehead. But, right, Kenny? It's like I can just fucking shut off my camera and my mic. So I don't know that it annoys me. I guess it probably does. I would say that it definitely is something that I am aware of. And I guess he's not looking for a response from me in those instances. Jeez.
A couple more before we get out of here. I know you love when people ask you this one from Dustin F137. Who's older? I assume he means between you and I.
Yeah, I mean, who got out of the womb first? Who wasn't going to lose the first race of their life? Who was getting antsy in there, ready to go get shit done? And who was born 3 minutes later? Do I need to answer the question, Dustin?
Yeah, like on the documentary, Dominic Cruz was talking about how John bullies me. I liked the verb choice, actually, Dominic. That was pretty good. All right,
Jay's
Matt
younger.
from Dagestan here, John. I think Dom Cruz and Ken Flo, this may be the winner, are your best fighter friends. Disregarding weight, if they ever fought, who do you have winning and how? Matthew, you are the front runner if I get a vote tonight.
No, I think we give the fighter card to the gentleman who asked if I could reverse an outcome of a fight. I have been receiving questions from MMA fans for so long, and nobody's ever asked me that question. But we can continue that debate at another time. As for this question, if Dominic Cruz and Ken Flo actually fought, that's
that's why it's a good question. It's a really good question, though, right? Because not as if the weight class, it could meet at 45 certainly at some point. I know Kenny's
think the fight
bigger.
Probably goes the distance, and I'll say that I'll plead the fifth, like Dr. Fauci.
Well, you could give it to the bigger man, right? Kenny's a little bigger, but Dominic, you'll be hearing from Dom. All right, one from your favorite Dicks Insider. John, if you had to cook a meal, the best meal you've ever made, the recipe that you perfected because the future of humanity depends on it, what would the dish be? Describe it, walk us through it. You don't have to go crazy.
Well, I can make white rice, whether I have a rice cooker or not. I seem to, be able to make that at the right consistency. So I'd probably pair some sort of Asian chicken with that. Maybe a little bit of oyster sauce, maybe a little sesame sauce. No one needs to know. Nobody gets hurt. A little chicken, a little onion, and pan. I can use a fucking slow cooker. Use a crock pot. You ever use a crock pot?
Well, just the fact that someone asks you about a recipe you've perfected and you come out of the gate with white rice. It's like, I don't even know where to begin.
I was getting to the oyster sauce and the ginger.
Yeah, I'm glad that you can perfect white rice. And a bit of a basic one, John, but a good one. But you still get nervous before a big card, or has that pressure become something you see as a privilege, similar to how Volk talks about fighting?
I do think pressure is a privilege, right? You feel privileged to be able to feel something like we feel, right? And John Gruden, who coached at the highest level, won a Super Bowl in the NFL, was asked recently how he would compare doing a broadcast to coaching a big game. And he said he feels some very similar things happening to his body. So I guess I definitely feel something different for UFC 330 versus like UFC Fight Night and Medic versus Rodriguez. The title fights, the consequences of what is at stake, I think elevates it. That Serbian crowd was one of the best crowds I've ever experienced, but it just feels a little bit different when we're just getting ready for a title fight and all the pageantry that comes with it. So, yeah, I mean, I feel some nerves, not nearly what I felt probably 100 pay-per-views ago.
I like this one from Bobby Jones. Would you bet on a tattoo again? If so, who?
Yeah,
and the reason I like that is because for those that don't know, the 209, you wanted that tattoo. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've had several tattoo bets since. I wanted the Brazilian flag tattooed on my neck, so I said if Betch Correia beats Ronda Rousey, that'll give me good reason to get the Brazilian flag, but Betch did not come through.
Nathan Miles, how does Mighty Mouse's legacy change if he never left the UFC and ended up moving up to bantamweight?
It's unchanged for me. There are a lot of people who I think view Khabib Nurmagomedov's legacy as greater than Islam Makhachev's legacy because he finished undefeated and at his most dominant. You just couldn't touch the guy. But he didn't change weight classes. You know, I think that what Mighty Mouse did at flyweight is just so otherworldly that leaving the UFC, I think, maybe heightens his legacy because he was willing to leave and move up to 35. So Mount Rushmore guy for me every day of the week, and I'm not sure you can get higher than that.
Had to cue this one up from Miles, fresh off Serbia. I know it's a sort of long-winded question, perhaps. Which UFC event had the craziest, loudest atmosphere and crowd?
Probably Brazil. I think back to some of those Vitor Belfort crowds in 2013, Fortaleza show in 2017. There have been some amazing shows in Australia. The U.S. crowds are underrated. Canadian crowds are fantastic. I remember doing some early Georges St. Pierre fights in Montreal. Those crowds were great. I think my answer for much of my time with the UFC was Montreal. But Serbia is right up there with the best crowds we've ever experienced.
Am I seeing things, or does Jon resemble Dustin Poirier with this hat on? You'll take that, huh?
Yeah, a lot of women think Dustin Poirier is handsome, so